Hey guys, welcome to the Leads to Deals podcast, where we talk about everything from leads to deals and everything we talk about leads to deals. I'm super excited to have in our inaugural in Columbia, in office, in studio, the great REI, Nick Perry. Nick, welcome to the podcast,
Hey
brother.
man, thank you so much for having me. And leads to deals. If you don't have leads, you don't have deals.
Bro, he's hitting it right on the head. We came into this wanting to provide value for everybody in here, helping them understand really what it takes to get sales, what it takes to generate. Because if you don't have people to talk to, obviously you're not going to be able to close deals. I'm always curious about people's how they got their first foray into sales, how you started getting into it. I've learned a lot from having you here in the studio today. But before we even get to your journey, what's your first impressions, bro? Like, tell me, now that you've come and seen the Lamasu office in life, what do you see?
All right, let me tell you guys something. I walked in here, my jaw completely dropped. None of you watching this, nobody in the States is running an operation like Lamasu Leads. You walk in here, there's hundreds of people. The energy is absolutely off the charts. These guys are dialed in, making phone calls, pits buzzing. I mean, for a sales guy, this is heaven right here.
Well, having him come in here and having your feedback in front of the team, it means a lot. So for everybody out there, for some reason you've only followed me and you haven't followed Nick, Nick's one of the OGs of this space, of the REI space. And so for yourself, how long have you been in sales, and then how long have you been in the REI world?
I've been in sales in some form or fashion pretty much my entire life. I mean, from a young kid hustling all the way up to my career now. So my entire career has been sales, from being a personal trainer to doing franchise sales to inside sales at Indeed to now doing it in real estate.
And so when did you start doing B2C? Were you always B2C?
Yep, I've always been business to business. When I was doing franchise sales, getting people to buy franchises, we're frozen yogurt franchises, calling other franchise owners, getting them to bite. Yep.
Very cool. All right, and so for a guy like you who steps into REI, when you saw the REI space, did you initially hear about wholesaling, investing? Like, how did you get into that side?
Yeah, so I was a personal trainer from 18 to 23. I trained in like a wealthy area of town. So all my clients, they were coming in, telling me about their trip to the Maldives, pulling up in their Bentley. I knew they had the $15 million house in the gated community, and I'm busting my ass. I got a full buck of clients, and I'm only making 75 grand a year. And I said, I got the wrong operating system. These guys are doing something that I'm not. And all of them were either business owners, they own a big software tech company or some sort of company, or they were in real estate. So I went ahead and said, I need to figure this real estate game out. And when I moved to Austin, Texas, 2013, I didn't have any jobs. I didn't have any connections. I didn't know what the hell I was gonna do. I had 5 grand in my name. That was my life savings at that moment. This was over 10 years ago. And I said, I'm gonna, I don't wanna go back to work for somebody. I'm gonna figure this shit out myself. And so I got on YouTube. I started researching real estate. I was asking probably the same questions you were. Do I have to get a real estate license? Should I become a broker? Yep. And I stumbled across wholesaling on YouTube, came across Sean Terry. And I mean, it's been a journey since then to get to where we are now. We're very blessed, but that was the original seed that got me going.
Do you think you had the master sales process? You were really dialed in prior to real estate, or some of the bulk of what you've learned and executed on has been since you've gotten into the real estate space?
I thought I was good at sales because I was able to sell franchises and personal training. And when I got into real estate, this is at the very beginning. When I first moved down to Austin, I'm handwriting yellow letters, handwriting bandit signs. I'm actually lining up appointments. I got leads, but I could not get deals. And I couldn't figure it out. I went on 104 face-to-face, driving to people's houses, seller appointments before I got my first deal. Damn. And I'll tell you the thing that changed it. So I wasn't getting traction. I'm getting booted out of kitchen table after kitchen table. Get out of my house, get out of my house. And I ended up having to get a job at Indeed because I only had 5 grand in my name. So I'm trying to keep this real estate dream alive, but I realized I'm gonna have to get a job if I wanna keep this alive. So I ended up getting a job at Indeed.com. It's an inside sales organization, very similar to this, Fortune 1,000 company with 2,000 sales reps. They run one of the top inside sales companies in the entire world. And so I went in there just hungry. I had $800 left in my bank account at this time. And I started at this position and I said, you know what, I'm just gonna master the craft of sales, do whatever the hell they tell me to do so I can go in, get my money and get out and become a full-time entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I went from $800 in my account to making $250,000 a year, Rookie of the Year, Top Gun, all the achievement awards. And I did that as my 9 to 5, but it was deep in my heart that I was not going to let that entrepreneurial dream die. I went home and I had from my 9 to 5 to my 6 to 2. Come home, eat some dinner real quick, and right back on the phones and doing my real estate business until I passed out. And then Saturday and Sunday, same thing. The first 3 years of my business, there was no vacations, there was no hanging out. It was strictly work, 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 and that was what allowed me to get to the point that I'm at now.
Yeah, I see a lot of guys and they call me up and they're like, hey man, I want you to kind of handle the cold calling for me so that way I can focus on my 9 to 5. But they really have it kind of backwards. For me, it's like, hey, I want you to go in here and learn it. You can't wholesaling is already the shortcut. For me, I think it's already the shortcut to becoming a real estate investor. But what they're really looking for is somebody to handle the learning process for them. And you got to do what you did, which is when you get home, you're going to have to pick up the phone. You're going to have to grind out. You're going to have to put in the reps. You can't just expect to be able to come home and just walk right into a contract. It takes dials. It takes an effort to get into it. And so they never refine their craft. They never really grind in. And I think what a lot of people, at least for me, I try to convey to these kids is sales changed my life. Like mastering the art of communication, the power of persuasion, being able to know that I didn't have a college degree. I didn't have many resources available to me, but I saw a guy stand in front of a room like we did with these kids. And I knew he had a better car than me, he had a better house than me, he had a prettier girl than me. He had everything that I wanted, and the only thing that guy had done is he had mastered communication skills. And I said, I almost treated it like it was almost like a drug. It's like, okay, well, people are out here selling drugs. I can sell vowels, I can sell words. I can get out here and we can push this and turn it into real revenue. And so hearing you say that, like that, you grinded your face off and then came home and grinded again, took these sales skills and pushed them over. I think a lot of people tried to kind of skip that part, the actual sales process.
That's what it takes though. And like you said, sales will set you free. I don't care if you're going after a doctorate or a lawyer, don't even do that. Master the art of sales first, and you'll be higher paid than any CEO, any doctor, any lawyer, any anesthesiologist, just by this one skill. And if you're gonna do that, you should master sales anyway.
Yes.
No matter what vertical you're in.
Yeah, I try to share with these kids is that this is the thing that will go behind every line on their resume is the power of communication, because they have to sell themselves in any future jobs, any future roles that they go to. And it almost becomes unfair. Truly, guys, once you start to master sales, like where you can guide the crowd, or how to handle the most nuanced situations. You're only having a fight with your girl if you choose to have a fight with your girl, because you've mastered that.
Absolutely. If you can master communication, you almost get to shape your own universe. And I've always been that way. When I was a kid, I was always the kid that was getting all the other kids to organize a tournament and, hey, here's what we're doing, guys. So you got to be able to have a vision, one, and then be able to sell that vision. If you can't sell the vision on what you're doing, don't expect to be a leader, don't expect to be a CEO, just go get a job at McDonald's.
So speaking of vision, I've met you now professionally for a couple of times. This is kind of one of our first times kind of kicking it a little bit more than just the business side. And so tonight when I show you what we have going on the other side of town, you're gonna see a lot of like vision boards and a lot of stuff still written on the glass. And even at my age and as successful as I am, I still really keep my goals in front of me and my power words in front of me. So being a salesman to others is important, but being a salesman to yourself is the most important. So when I heard you saying some of those words a second ago, I'm curious, throughout your career, did you also focus and how did you handle your goals and how did you sell yourself that you were capable, that you weren't an imposter, that you were the fucking guy who can go out there and create a check? Because those of you who are in sales, every single day, he wakes up and gets to give himself a raise if he chooses to. I wake up, you wake up and get to give yourself a raise. It's the only profession where you can do that daily. So how did you move yourself?
Big time. So I grew up a screw up, dropped out of high school when I was 15. Before that, I was selling drugs, getting in a lot of trouble, hanging out with the wrong crowds. I realized, I'm hanging around deadbeats. I'm not gonna end up going anywhere. This is back in like 2003, 2004. And I went down to the library, and this is when they still had CDs. And I started listening to Tony Robbins on CDs. And that changed my life. I would listen to Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, and I started brainwashing myself with successful people and putting myself in that mental frame. And once I did that and I started learning more about self-development, that's when I went all in, and I took that very seriously, because you've got to be able to sell yourself first. So that comes down to not only mastering your mind and your emotions, but that's really the most important part, I think, is mastering your mind and your emotions. If you can't do that for yourself, don't expect to lead others.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to, what I've done is I've constantly just continued to, monitor my thoughts, right? So one of the things about life, I'm going to tell you guys a huge golden nugget, is your life is the outcome of your 5 senses.
Amen.
Right? So your body is just a sensory organ. So it's a combination, whatever you put in comes out. So watch what you hear, watch what you smell, watch what you taste, watch what you touch. All 5 senses, you got to watch what goes in. So if you're hanging around deadbeats, you're smoking weed all the time, you're eating junk food, don't expect to have a great life.
Amen.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny because you said the 5 senses, and I thought you were going to say something that I was raised off of, which is you're the equal of your 5 closest friends. And so I remember hearing that when I was starting out in sales, and I looked around, or not even starting out in sales, just trying to get on my own feet. And I just looked at the 5 people that I was around, and I said, I don't have 5 people that I want to be the average. I just don't, they're not in my circle. So I found them in books. And I found them, back then we didn't have YouTube, but you're right, we had the podcast, we had the tapes, and you had the CDs and stuff. And so for me, I really did, and I surrounded myself with Zig Ziglar, John Maxwell, Tony Robbins. I went to a Tony Robbins conference, and it wasn't that he changed my life there, but I bought another guy's CD called Frank Kern. Frank Kern's a master online marketer. And I bought this 5-disc set, and then there was one sentence that Frank Kern said. He said, hey, I use this thing to outsource called Upwork or Odesk, whatever it was called back in the day. And that my mind was blown because my trajectory was open. I said, oh, wait a minute, I can hire somebody in the other side of the world for cheaper than I could right here on this side, and I could get some type of quality product. And so it just started this whole journey of me being able to start my own professional career, but it never would have happened had I not taken that first step to invest in myself.
Well, let me tell you this. I'm a high school dropout. I dropped out when I was 15, but I've spent over 7 figures on my own education.
Amen.
And I take it very serious. I spend at least 150, more than that, probably $250,000 a year on personal development. Whether it's going to conferences, coming to places like this to learn, I'm always learning. The moment you stop learning is the moment you start declining.
And it also too, you can learn from people who are in a smaller position than you, or they don't have to always be this grandiose figures. I like a lot of these masterminds because when I go into these masterminds, obviously I feed off of the top performers, the cool things that they're doing, but there's always some cowboy that you hear something cool and feed out from, and so it's a big deal.
I like to say that you can learn something from anybody, whether it's the CEO or the janitor. So that's why I'm always very respectful to everybody. I treat the janitor and the CEO the same way because
100%.
That person probably knows something you don't. And I think that's a big thing, with especially alpha male salespeople, is if you have an ego, that's when God smacks you down every single time. So, I've always been cognizant of, always trying to take in and learn and be helpful and be a servant. And that's what's helped me in sales, in business, and in life.
It's also the humble background too, because we know what it took to get out of there. You don't want to go back. And then the other side of it as well too, it's like everybody here's got that same potential. Every single agent in my office has the exact same trajectory to do what I've done, but even better. Because if I could have started in a work environment like this, how much how much higher could I have gone? And so that's why I'm glad to be able to have this here for these guys and gals. I want to focus on leads for a second, right? And so obviously I have a large lead gen kind of a company, and you are known as one of the experts in the PPC side of the REI space. And so for you, when you look at a lead, when you think about quality, what is it that you set out to do to provide your closers the best opportunities? And give us kind of a history lesson on, real quick, how you've gone from just generating the leads to now generating a Nick Perry style quality lead.
Absolutely. So I've tried every form of marketing out there. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on every marketing channel, whether that's Facebook ads, Instagram ads, direct mail, cold calling, SMS, you name it. TV,
yes.
Radio, I've done it all. And for me in particular, I've just had more success with PPC leads. So PPC, for you guys that aren't familiar, is pay-per-click. And what I'm referring to is Google and Bing search engines. So these motivated sellers, rather than us reaching out to them saying, hey, would you like to sell your property? they're going on to Google and saying, sell my house fast, or I have an inherited home. Clicking, researching my company, seeing my reviews, clicking on my website, reading my website, filling out the form, requesting a cash offer.
Yes.
So that's a much higher intent lead than if you're reaching out to somebody else. Now, like Scott's company, they pre-qualify them and do all those things, but for me, everybody's got their lane and their focus, and that's what works for me, so I continue to pour into that.
Yeah, and so we haven't been able to share this much, but my very first passion in marketing was PPC leads. And so one day before I had my previous exit company, which was a timeshare exit company, I was walking around the lake with a dear friend of mine he's big in the network marketing space, and he was really explaining to me PPC, and we were walking around, and the way all of a sudden a light bulb went up in my head, he was just like, but you can pay for these ads, and it evens the playing grounds, because there could be a hedge fund or there could be Coca-Cola, and you can now afford to advertise right beside Coca-Cola.
That's right.
Where pre-PPC, I can't afford the billboards, I can't afford the Super Bowl spots, but with this, for that one session, I can compete with the players that are up there. It's a wildly disruptible type of mentality. And so what I began to do, and what my core competency in PPC was actually competitor brand kind of camping on them. And so if I wanted people to buy my soda, I would buy Coca-Cola plus reviews, or Coca-Cola plus complaints.
Absolutely.
Or Coca-Cola plus scam. So when people thought about buying a Coca-Cola, I could now show my alternative. And we really did a good job of buying search intent, obviously leads, but being able to put our product in front of somebody who's also searching for a competitor's product.
That's one of the biggest ways that we generate leads now is Google has at least 1,700 data points on every individual. It's scary. Google knows more about you than you probably know about yourself. So they know what you search, when you search. They got access to the microphone on your camera. Right. So it's scary how much they know. So we have actually been able to go into Google. We can target people based on their search history. So if they type in a competitor plus reviews, we can target them that way. If they visited the competitor's website, we can ethically steal all of their traffic. And that is a huge, huge way to get ahead right now in 2023, is being able to not only target competitors, but what has this person been searching on the internet? And Google knows a ton about you, so they know how to get in front of you.
And it's also one of those things, if you're gonna play in that side of the pool, understand people will do it to you too. So there's only gonna be but so long before people target you when you grow up and do it, and so you wanna be ethical in this. But the advantage is there's a guy who's running massive radio campaigns, and they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're creating search queries, and most consumers don't know how to go to the actual address bar, they go to the search bar. And when they type in the search bar of that competitor of yours who just spent all this money online to get brand awareness, you're then able to kind of snipe that traffic or offer an alternative. So that's obviously a big plus and a big strategy. For a lot of people, the thing that I struggled with trying to help people with PPC in this industry was landing page optimization, or just even to have the basic fundamentals understanding of how to have a page speed worthy enough. So when you're coaching people, how are you helping them? Not only just, obviously we understand that, hey, we're gonna help you with the terms, the campaign build out, but how are you helping on the site page conversion side?
Yeah, so I have a couple reputable vendors, because that is the most critical part, is okay, say you get your ads dialed in perfectly. If you don't have an optimized landing page that loads like that, the user's gonna jump back to Google.
Yep.
That's just the way it is. We're living in 2023, 2024. You guys know, if you click on something that doesn't load up immediately, you're like, screw this, it's supposed to be a scam site. They don't know what they're doing, I'm going back and finding somebody else. So I've got a couple vendors that we use that have been phenomenal, but I'm very selective on the vendors that I recommend to our community.
Yeah, one of the things, and this is just, we've never talked about this pre this podcast, but for me, one of the things I'm really cognizant on, even on our own PPC campaign, is not only the speed to the page load, but the speed to the callback of the conversion. And so one of the things on our congrats page is we add video content there with testimonials, and our hopes are is instead of the most consumers, you do it, I do it, everybody does it, they fill out a form and then they go back to the other guy and then fill out a form and then go back because they're shopping around or whatever. We want to try to capture them. And so when they do convert and they go to the congrats page, not only we instantaneously sending that to our closers, trying to get them right away, but if there is a time delay, how do we keep them on my website long enough, engaged long enough for my closer to call them before they fill out another one? And so I'm just curious if you've heard that or if you also enact some similar strategies.
That's genius. That's something you just taught me right now. Is And I'm probably gonna take that back and incorporate putting our reviews on the thank you page, making sure they have a video so they stay engaged and the closer has time to call them. That's absolutely brilliant. Great. One thing that we have done that has helped our conversion rate a ton and making sure they don't go to competitors is we've taken our Google reviews extremely seriously. We've built them up and we incentivize everybody in our company. We actually have like little spiffs on getting reviews. We have big spiffs too if they get enough reviews in a quarter. And because we've got over, I think, 300 reviews on Google, 4.8 stars, people see that and they say, I'm not going with anybody else. We've had so many laydowns where they say, hey, yeah, we saw your reviews. We're not going anywhere else. We're gonna sell to you. And they've already made up their mind.
And it's so easy because most of your competitors have no reviews. Most of your competitors don't have a BBB. They don't have a Google page set up. They don't have an efficient website. I mean, to me, I think it's so funny. I, as a salesperson and a marketer, I love just to poke holes in other people's operations. So like I'll see a sign on the road or I'll see somewhere and I can call and get into their funnel. It's mind blowing how many people just don't call you back. First, starting there, they don't even call their leads until such an extended period of time, 2 days, 3 days, whatever it be later. But then how many people don't have a presence? Trust is everything in the online world. It's not like you're cold calling somebody. Your trust metric is already a lot lower there, but online, people can go to other websites. And so building out that review process is huge. Do you pre-screen the reviews first before you put them on? Before you get the seller to put them on?
Yeah, so we get the sellers to put them on. We'll have title companies put them on, realtors put them on, contractors put them on. Because if you're just stuck doing sellers, it could be a long road before you get there. But how many other people and vendors have interacted with your business that can give you a positive review?
That's golden. And so again, so we're talking about generating the leads, but to get to the deals part, you got to do all these kind of massage processes. I think one of the things that I can say confidently is that PPC has the shortest conversion window out of any, at least for the REI space, really any of the channels. I think that there's always an exchange in cost per lead and then conversion cycle, because somebody who responds to TV may be a quicker conversion cycle because there's been so much redundancy, brand awareness. It may convert shorter, but I really love PPC. PPC closes faster than cold call, for sure. And so when I see you guys, and I've met a lot of your students in the 7-Figure Cartel and 8-Figure Cartel, I know that these guys are executing on PPC, generating these leads. But one thing that you teach that others don't teach, or at least I give them the knowledge base, is nationwide marketing. And so your avatar of somebody in Alabama is wildly different than somebody in San Diego. And so how are you handling that from the copy side or the webpage side? Like, are you having to make modifications, or is your messaging universal?
Our messaging is universal, but the way we evaluate properties is different, right? We're not gonna look at a San Diego property the same way we look at a Birmingham, Alabama property. But that's really the cadence. We've got it dialed in to where we know how much we can offer based on the activity. So I know a lot of people out there will teach you, hey, look at the sold comps. If you look at the sold comps first, you're killing yourself. Fastest way to be able to evaluate a property is look at the for sales versus the pendings. Go on Zillow, click on how many houses are for sale, then click on how many are pending.
Yep.
If 70% of the houses are pending in that market, guess what? That's a moving market. I don't care if the population is 2 million or 20,000. If half the stuff is pending or 70% is pending, you know things are moving there.
Yes.
So that's how we evaluate markets and know what to offer. It's not the 70% rule. It's not, it's a small population, so we got to offer this. It's based on the activity and the supply and demand. So you got to be able to gauge the supply and demand first.
So I see a guy like you generates high quality leads. They still have a price. And so when I talk to closers, I always tell closers, I said, you would treat that lead differently if you just paid $175 for it. If you just paid $282 for it, because when I see closers treating leads differently, it's because to them it didn't cost that money. Yes, there's an opportunity cost if they treat it bad, but the reality is that these leads cost real money. And so we dig in, and I think us as CEOs or as entrepreneurs as well too, we just treat leads the best. We get them in there, we generate them. So for you guys, do you feel it's also a culture thing, making sure that your guys are that dialed in? Is it an oversight thing where you're watching how your leads are treated? How are you guys getting so much once you've generated the lead?
Yes, so it goes down to a few things, right? Comes down to first, hiring, right? You got to hire top talent, especially in our industry, real estate investment. You got to have sharks. I've made a lot of mistakes for the longest time, thinking I could hire people that were good, but we just needed to give them a little time to be, to get them developed. People are not learning on my dime anymore. I do not care. Either you got it or you don't. And when I have great people, I'm still gonna pour into them and give them everything I got. So not only are we training with the team every single week, we're doing one-on-ones, we're doing all kinds of things to make sure that they're supported, and we're running it like a real team. We're looking at their pipeline. Every week we're doing sales meetings, role plays, comp trainings. So I don't care how great the person is, once you get them in the door, you still have to continue to pour into your people. And when it comes down to management, we've got a director of sales.
Great.
So he's there on the sales floor every single day, looking at what's going on in everybody's book. Hey, what's going on with 123 Main Street? What about this one? Call this lady back and tell her this. So we're not missing opportunity, because that's really good. Once you get above like 6 or 7 closers, you need somebody that's there full time to make sure you guys aren't missing money.
Yeah, I always say people don't do what you expect, they do what you inspect. And so for us, I'm just a big believer in transparency on KPIs. That Eagles and duck wall that's out there, to me, that embodies everything. And even on a non-closer level, it's almost like the football team. Like the coach doesn't matter. He puts up who's gonna be starting QB, he puts it on the outside of the gym, and you can just see, like, there should be transparency and performance. And I think that's helped a lot too. It's just making sure the guys know their numbers. A lot of CEOs, a lot of wholesalers, a lot of investors, they kind of approach it more of a hobby, or I'm gonna allow them to run the sales floor. You can't do that. These guys need the guidance and leadership, and they need accountability. I want accountability, and I'm successful. I love having cross accountability. I love hearing those types of exposures. And so I'm really, really diligent on all winners are in the sun and all losers are in the sun. Everybody gets sunlight in our operation.
Absolutely, yeah. If you got to be able to shine the light on the good, the bad, and especially the ugly.
Yeah.
That's where you need to, because that's where you have the opportunity to improve. So that's another thing that's been able to be really helpful in sales and growing a successful organization is radical transparency in our organization, right? So that's one of our things we preach over and over again, radical transparency. And I always tell them we are an idea meritocracy, which means I want you to bring ideas. Tell me what's good, tell me what's bad, and especially what's bad. Where's our areas of opportunity? Where can we improve right now? That's where you're gonna get growth. If you're constantly saying, oh yeah, we're killing it, you're not growing. Look at where you can improve. It's just like being a bodybuilder. Oh, hey, I need to get my shoulders bigger. I need to get my back bigger. I need to get the legs bigger. Start scrutinizing every area of your business and working on those weak areas.
Yeah, I love it. Where do you get your enthusiasm? You just stay this enthused all the time, this geared up?
Pretty much. I mean, I've always, especially when I'm talking business, I'm always charged up.
Yeah.
I love business. I love winning. I love, growing. I love learning. And so it depends on where you take me.
Yeah.
If you take me to a sports bar or something, I'm probably going to get pretty tired and, checked out.
Yeah.
If you start talking to me about the, what's going on the news or what's going on reality TV, I'm checked out.
Yep.
But you get me in a room like this with other high performers, amazing salespeople, this is what I love.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's been great having you. I want to talk real quick on the deal side of things. For you guys, everybody in this industry, I finds a way to lock up a deal, but they don't always find a way to monetize the deal. And so real quick for you, if you're gonna give some advice, it's do you think the industry has a comping problem? Do they have a retrading problem? What is it that you think that there's such a high default rate? I suspect 70% of every contract, if you looked at everything nationwide, at least 70% of every contract backs out.
Yeah, because one, they got a comping problem. Two, they've got an exit strategy problem, right? So we've addressed those head on. We know we used to have the same problems you guys probably did, 70% fallout rate. We looked the ugly demon in the mirror every single day until we got it figured out. It took us a little while to get it figured out, but I can tell you it's a very trainable skill. To be able to get your ARVs dialed in, very easy trainable skill. And we do this nationwide. I've closed deals in all 50 states, and we're able to trade a property in Alabama the same as we can in San Diego because we know how to properly comp. Number two, cash buyers have dried up, rental buyers have dried up. The Bird method died at 6% interest rates. So where is the money right now? Because you guys are seeing properties are trading at an all-time high and they're continuing to go up and up and up. But these are retail buyers that are entering the market. So your end client right now should be geared towards the retail end buyer. If you're trying to force a deal down a buy and hold investor's throat, the numbers don't pencil right now. If you're trying to get a cash buyer to flip this property, you've got a problem with your construction prices and they've got to get hard money. It's very difficult for these investors right now. So go to where the money's at, follow the money. So we switched our exit strategies, gearing more towards wholesaling, novating properties, and that's unlocked a floodgate of capital, and we've been growing, huge. We've grown over 100% in this last year.
I love it. And there's a lot of companies right now that aren't really growing at all because they were so reliant on the hedge fund model, or they were so reliant on Burr, and they're really shortchanged. I think one thing, if I could give people advice out there, it's like, you guys, if you solve the leads problem, obviously you still got to go to the deal side, but you can't solve deals without the leads. And I find a lot of people in this industry, I'm doing a free closer training on it this upcoming week on it, but they have a problem with getting ghosted by the seller. They have a problem with sending out contracts. I call it the be back bus. They're like, okay, they'll be back. Yeah. And so for you guys, just at a high level real quick, how are you making sure that if you guys send something out or you guys show a contract, damn it, we're getting it signed, because you know your exit strategy's there. You're telling somebody something with belief, I can acquire this property. So how are you making sure you guys don't get ghosted?
Yeah, one thing, it comes down to when you're actually doing that close. I know that you guys are trying to close these deals. You want to get the signature ASAP, but once you have that signature, it comes down to having proper expectations set with the seller. So, okay, Mr. Seller, hey, just so you know, it's a legally binding contract. We're submitting earnest money on this property tomorrow, so the earnest money will be in there. I'm actually going to be live transferring you over to our transactions team, and they're going to walk you through the entire process. But basically, the way this is going to go down is we're going to submit earnest money deposit. We're actually going to put we're going to go ahead and put a lien on the title. That way, nobody can go around us on this. We'll just straight up tell them, like, this is serious business. We're not messing around. We are buying this property, and then we tee it up nicely. You want to build good rapport with that person, make sure that they feel comfortable with everything. And when you pass it over to your transactions team, they need to be relying on that same message throughout. Hey, next step in the process is this. If people feel like they're not being led and they don't know what's next, they're going to start going other directions.
Do you pick up the phones anymore?
I haven't been on the phones in probably 5 or 6 years.
You got any crazy story that so far that this industry has presented to you yet with dealing with sellers, or your team dealing with sellers? Anything that on that deal side that's really stood out?
Oh man, there's Jerry Springer every day in my office. You know what I mean? It's nuts in there with some of these horror stories you hear from sellers. Like one that stands out to me. I mean, it's tough for me to pick. I'll give you one right now. So this is when I was originally like flipping properties back in the day. I was dealing with a hoarder house, and I got down this hoarder house. It's in New Braunfels, Texas, north of San Antonio. And this lady, she was a newspaper reporter, and she's probably like 350 pounds. And we end up knocking on her door. And I remember when the door opened, she's like, come in, come in. We cracked the door open, and the smell of ammonia hit my face so hard. And I was like, dude, I don't know if I could do it. And I was with one of my other closers, and we're both gagging when we walk through the door. There's, 3 inches of cat shit completely covered in the entire place. And the lady, she was bad hoarder. So all she ate was sushi and lactate-free milk. And so the whole house was full of empty sushi and lactate-free milk. And she had diapers. So the whole house was full of dirty diapers, and she was just living in there with 14 cats. There's dead cats in there. So not a good situation. Another one, I had a murder house. The lady ended up, her boyfriend ended up murdering somebody in the backyard. And when I had the buyers going out there, the police were digging up the body, and my buyer still ended up buying the property. We made 30 grand. So you hear all kinds of crazy shit like that. I go on and on about stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a crazy industry where you're helping distressed sellers. So, you get the best of the best and the worst of the worst.
Yeah, I always say we're buying ugly homes or ugly situations.
Yep.
And the scarier are the ugly situations. You can be a pretty home, but some real bad things. Daughters are on drugs. Divorces, all kinds of stuff like that. So for me, man, I'm very thankful to have you here, to come and kick it with us today. I think the team was very excited to have you here. If you kind of summarize your trip so far here, seeing the Lamasu way, what's kind of your summary?
This is a real organization. I can tell you right now that in terms of lead generation, you don't want anybody else handling your leads. If you're going to try to go to, a VA company in a different part of the world, you're going to have issues with that. But I mean, I wish this guy could turn the camera around right now and see what I see. All these hungry young people out here on the phones, headsets on, dual monitors, dialed in. They're hyped up. I've never seen anything like it before in my life, and I can tell you that, if you want the best results, you partner with the best people. So link up with Scott.
I greatly appreciate it. And so this to me has been a little bit of a kind of a fanboy thing, because I knew about you well before you knew about me. And so that's super cool like that. Like, I had my eye on you, but I knew about 7FigureCartel actually before I knew about you. I had heard about the 7FigureCartel because as we were looking to expand our little wholesaling business at that time in Orlando, Florida, it was the buzz, it was the thing. And then it's always stuck in my mind, and I've met more and more people. The more these masterminds and groups, the more I hear the name Nick Perry and 7FigureCartel. And so for you, I can just say confidently that every client that I've worked with that's been part of 7FigureCartel are entrepreneurs. They're like dialed in. They know their numbers. And I don't know if it's just that's that crowd that you attract. And so that's what is the output. But I just know that if you're serious about adding on PPC as a marketing channel, or serious about elevating your wholesale REI business, particularly in the exit strategies and the operational side, you have to check out 7FigureCartel. And so how do they find 7FigureCartel?
Yeah, you just reach out on Instagram. The link's in my bio. You can schedule a free call with my team, figure out if it's right for you. I can tell you spots are limited because it's our time. So if it's something you want to jump on, I would jump on it immediately. Prices are going up too. Our member success rates, through the roof. So that's something I'm super proud of is, all of our members that come through are doing phenomenal. And I've been able to, not only help a lot of these business owners, but create great relationships with them, and it's been really rewarding for me as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and one of the things we've discussed a lot today is quality. And I've also been able to watch behind the scenes how hard you've worked on other things related to 7FigureCartel in the brief areas and the times in between. And so just seeing you interact with your team, making sure that the deliverables, checking in on the affiliates or your customers, like 7FigureCartel is a way to expand and grow your wholesaling business, REI investor business. And it's probably a super badass community of like-minded entrepreneurs like you.
Absolutely.
Cool. Yep. Awesome. Leads to deals, where everything we talk about leads to deals, and we talk about everything from leads to deals.